Good morning. Good
morning.
morning.
Well, thanks for joining me again.
Looking forward to it. Happy
Episode
Sunday.
2. We got one rocking and rolling. I think it went pretty well. So here we are again.
Absolutely.
But welcome back to the Bear and the Wolf podcast. My name is Sophia Sterling, and I will be your host today. We're here again with Terri Groom, the wolf of the crew.
Hey,
She has
hello.
been, yes, she is our all-star psychic medium of DFW. We started doing this podcast because we're trying to get really good information out there with humility and kindness and accuracy.
Yes, we
So,
are.
subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast, and we will be on YouTube. If you subscribe to that channel, that'll enter you into the chance to get a 30-minute reading. There will be 2 winners every month. But all right, what's going
Let's
on
make
with
it
you?
happen.
What's new in your world, Terri?
Oh my gosh, happy Sunday. I'm so excited. It's sunshiny outside. It's going to be a great day. Looking forward to getting a lot of tasks done today. Got some great people I'm meeting later on for readings and sessions and students. So we're going to have a fun Sunday.
Are you teaching tonight?
I'm not tonight. No, tonight I'm off. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yay!
I'll probably cook and do something fun in the kitchen. So,
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, your oven came.
Yes, finally, third time's a
Good.
charm. It
Oh,
fits.
good.
It's exciting.
Yay!
Yay.
Well, I know I told you about this, but I had that allergic reaction, so that's been
Yes.
fun. So I just took a lot of antihistamines, and I didn't go get my lips done.
Oh, come
Although
on,
it
tell us
does
the truth.
perhaps appear.
You look
But all
gorgeous. It's
right.
all good.
So to make sure that we can get everybody out on the right time, let's jump into our first topic.
Absolutely. Let's see what we got and what we're working on today. I've got my lucky deck here. Oh, there's one. Okay. Drum roll, please. Here we go. You ready? Oh, gatekeeper. Oh, everyone's going, what the heck is a
Ooh.
gatekeeper? I can feel it. So, wow, that's a good
Mm-hmm.
topic for today. I like that. How funny is that? Gatekeeper means a lot of things, whether in the religious sector or the spiritual sector. Happy Sunday. Here we go. So, where do you want to start, Sophia?
Well, so what we don't mean is the gatekeepers of the intelligence. In the community, a lot of people don't want to share the knowledge, and we would be the opposite of gatekeepers. We're trying to
Yes.
bring all of that, but you must mean in the spirit world.
I mean, in the spirit world. And that's a
The
really good
guides.
question
I
because I
got
was
you.
waiting for someone to say, hey, what is she talking about? So, yes, the gatekeeper in the spiritual realms. The gatekeeper is one of my most favorite guides to work with. Think of it this way: the gatekeeper is your spiritual team leader. It's the energy that works with you really, really well and very close. This is an energy that is kind of your personal assistant. Oh, I love it. There's kitty, kitty, kitty. Oh, it's like this big white feather going across the screen. I love it.
Don't put his ego up. It's already huge.
I know, that's okay. Now, really, if he starts levitating from that remark,
Give
then
him back, Terri. Put him down.
I love it. Oh, there we go. Woo. We keep it real,
We have
we keep
to.
it real and we keep it real good. So here we go.
Love that. Hey, that should be
Hey,
on
I'm
a shirt.
awake. Can you believe it? I'm awake.
I love it.
So let's get back to gatekeepers in the spiritual realm. We recognize that the gatekeeper is going to be your go-to. This is an energy source that's going to have your back. This is going to be one of your primary guides that will really, really be the one that you turn to for the basics of life, kind of like a personal assistant, if you can imagine. This is someone that I would strongly recommend all my students, anybody who's interested in spirituality, to hone in first on a particular guide. Try to and again, if any guide comes through, then we're on to the right path. But when you are ready, the gatekeeper guide is your personal assistant. When I work and I do what I do, whether it's teaching, mentoring, readings, whatever it may be, I know that I, Brutus, who is my gatekeeper, I know he's got my back. I know that he's there. And if I say, listen, I, Brutus, I need some feedback, or I need you to go get me someone from the spirit world. I need this, I need that. Thank you, please, and thank you. I know that I'm going to get results.
Yes. And we talked about this in the other episode, but he was also other than, your wolves,
Mm-hmm.
from the namesake of our show, when you
Yes.
were younger, I think it's in the books as well, but you write about before anything really happened, you start to notice these two wolves, but nobody
Oh,
else
yes.
could see them. So there was
Yes.
this emergence of a spirit guide, sort of, but in the animal form.
Yes, in the animal kingdom, in the animal form. Yes.
But then I Brutus came, and suddenly you're like, well, now that's not a wolf. That seems to be a Scottish gladiator, and you're like, that now I'm losing it.
Yes.
But that was the
Absolutely.
first one to present to you, right?
Yes, that is correct. It's interesting, and I'll speak briefly about the wolves. What's so amazing to me is, again, we talked briefly about, you don't really need to focus on the names and trying to get formal, or we formal or friendly. Either we want to know a name so we can be polite, or we want to know a name so we can pal out. So I was very, very pleased as a small child when two wolves showed up in energy, and I looked at them, and I just was kind of, first I was a little taken back.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
I've read Little Red Riding Hood. I know what happens in
You're like,
that
and
realm.
grandma wasn't that great.
Exactly, and am I the grandmother of Red Riding Hood? But what I realized is I was kind of gazing at them, wondering what was happening next. I heard Eisen and Haig. Now that was
Wow.
very, very definite. Eisen and Haig. So my two wolves that I don't interact with, we're not throwing toys at the dog park. Just so you know, you'll
Yeah.
never see them out there doing that. But Eisen and Haig work with me all the time. Now, are they my gatekeeper? In the animal realm of spirit work, in the animal kingdom of spirit work, they're probably also working with I Brutus. He's not afraid of them. He sees them too. But my go-to as gatekeeper is definitely I Brutus.
And just real quick to on that last thing, because I am curious, if there's an awareness with, especially with you, and I'd say with your bloodline right now, where it's like, I feel y'all are all now pretty cohesively working in some different way against the dark. And so then
Absolutely.
there's a recognition that you do get noticed when you do that work to put the
Yeah.
dark at bay. So it would
Yes.
also make sense that you would have not only energy that would protect you intellectually, but
Yes.
even these wolves who can, if somebody comes sniffing in the wrong way to you, they're like, I don't think so, this is crazy, go on, go on and get.
Well, and that's a good point. I know a lot of what we talk about. You're going to have to keep an open mind, and the viewers and the listeners keep an open mind, because a lot of this is going to sound very far fetched. It's going to sound like, oh gosh, they've lost their mind, they've got a mental illness, they're dealing with something that isn't organic. This is something just created and designed for them, but that's not what this is about. And as you dig a little deeper and you start seeing what guide work is, and you start seeing who the protector guides, and of course today it's about gatekeepers, but when you figure out that they're there, it's very incredible the journey you can create with them. One other thing before I stop talking, you'll notice I have a gift for Gab with a capital
You're
G.
amazing.
Um, what was so fascinating for me, and maybe this will give you a little nudge, a curiosity nudge, and we'll talk about this later on for certain. But I have a nephew who literally I had not seen in like 30 years. My family, they became quite estranged from each other with the trauma. And one of the very first things he mentioned to me and said to me, and he said, because he was living in the house I grew up in, it had been basically left to him. And so he moved in to see what was going on there. And so he said, Aunt Terri, have you seen the wolves? Out of nowhere. This is someone I hadn't even, connected with in 30 years. So to the listeners, to the viewers, keep an open mind. Let's keep talking about gatekeepers, because I'll tell you, they're amazing.
Yes, yes. And between you and me, if we were crazy, then we would not see everybody having their set of guides as well. So it really is innate to the human experience. But
well, and that's a good point. And you know, I tell my students that get a little bit sometimes worried about getting too far out there, worried that their family will think that they've lost their minds. I always tell them, and I say it jokingly, but I'm quite serious about it. When you stop thinking this is crazy, then I want you to go visit a mental health physician.
yeah,
Because yes, I know it sounds crazy. It's amazing. And I know that sometimes it makes no sense to you and sometimes not to even myself. But it is truly part of our world.
I'd hate to walk away from all this and not have the assistance my entire life. And then upon passing, my guides are like, good job. You didn't pick up the phone once. So all
Right.
we're doing is trying to work with the energy that we have with us.
Yes,
And so many
absolutely.
don't even know we have those gifts, and that's what we're trying to bring light to. But your gatekeeper showed very early. I would say my gatekeeper showed really about maybe a couple 6 months before you and I really met, and
Hmm.
in a way that I didn't know what was going on. I just remember thinking, I am losing it. So,
Hmm.
but when you call it a gatekeeper, really what you're referring to is in a lot of people that are not working in spirit in the similar way that we do, I think you're so perfect when you say more of a secretary because they're keeping
Yes,
all the files of all the things that you love and you care about and you fear in a
absolutely.
relatively organized system. And
Yes.
that helps us because, my God, the human experience is so chaotic and complicated and beautiful, but so thankful that we have someone who's at least trying to get the papers into their respective stacks. Whereas for you and I, the gatekeeper element comes in a lot in the spirit where you've mentioned this 100 times. Somebody sitting in front of you, all of a sudden, Tom, Dick, and Harry from their ancestors show up because they're
Yes.
excited to have a conduit, but we don't really need to know what 8 grandmothers ago feels about the bloodline right now.
No.
So, your gatekeeper, my gatekeeper, we kind of keep everyone in line. And I love
Yes.
how you talk about how do you work with him as far as communication and spirit when you say whatever it is you need?
Well, and that's a good question. You know, oftentimes, yesterday was a perfect example, and I'm going to give you just kind of an illustration of what went on.
I
I had
love it.
three. I had three people that came in for basically a consult. I have no idea where we're going. Sometimes they'll folks just want to hear what I have to say. Sometimes they're very specific. This particular group came in and they were very specific. They wanted to speak to someone on the other side specifically. And that's exactly the information I got. It wasn't anything more than that. So I have three people, and I recognize that they're all related, and I figured that out pretty soon into it. Intuitively, probably not even that much, just based on what I see, what I see and what I felt as okay, we've got a mother, a daughter, and a grandma. Well, it was so interesting because it got very complicated. The person on the other side that I had to go find, had to go search for, had a relationship to all of them, but very, very odd relationship, the way it was all intertwined. So I, Brutus, my first thing was, now I
Yes.
didn't scream that out because I don't want them running, my clients running down, the hall, the corridor. But in my mind, I'm saying, okay, I, Brutus, let's get it going on. I need your assistance. I need your help. I need you to show me where we're heading with this. And very soon after, I had an energy, a spirit, a living spirit, and I call them living because we're not really talking to dead people. It's different. We'll talk about that later. But I had a wonderful spirit come forward, and it was a very complicated person as far as a relation to everyone. And so, long story short of this, I, Brutus, did an amazing job of sorting this out because in the middle of all of this, this connection, and they would not give me any feedback, none. I mean, they were
Yeah.
very stoic. And I thought, other than some tears, a few times, some tears, they were very stoic. And then there was a man that kept jumping in the middle, trying to protect the spirit. And I thought, okay, this is different too.
Oh,
So
weird.
it was, and it made sense in the end. But what was so amazing about it is I didn't lose my cool. It isn't about me. It's about my work to give. What can I do for the three people sitting across from me? And it just worked out. I'm truly grateful. Don't get me wrong. I'm truly grateful that it went really well. And in the end, they gave me feedback, but they waited for the 45 minutes. And it was an intense 45 minutes. They waited till I was finished before they gave me any feedback. It had all tied in so nicely together. The person even that was jumping in front of the spirit was actually her ex-husband. So it was very interesting.
Yeah.
So, the short end of this story is we need our team. We need our gatekeeper. Sometimes we need them more than other times. And for me to be able to sit there and sort it out without getting all tripped up into grandma, not grandma, daughter, not daughter, aunt.
Oh God.
Makes a difference.
100%. And two, for them to all be females of the same bloodline.
Yes.
There's that intrinsic melody. That's what you talked about it, where because they're just of the same bloodline, they all kind of have a core signature.
Yes.
And then you're trying to figure out what message is for who. I can't even imagine.
Well, and we want to do the legwork sometimes. And this is a good point to throw in the middle of this when we're talking about relying on our team. We want to go in there. We want to use the intellect. We want to sort things out. Yes, I used, good discernment. I figured out that they were all related. But what I did not want to do was to rely on that, my work of knowingness, to help me to call them correctly. So I told Brutus, and I told the person that it ended up being a woman and a man on the other side. I said, when you want to speak to one of the three individuals, independent of the other two, you must directly call them something that I can find is relatable, like my granddaughter or my friend, or something that's relatable, so they will know that I am really giving them the information and not collectively the group.
Yeah.
And so I stepped out, and Brutus showed me that. It was spectacular, but to someone who was new at that probably would have been very scary.
Oh my gosh,
Gatekeeper
yeah.
helps.
When it comes to, is there a way to be disrespectful in communication with the guides versus a way to do it with kindness? And do they even care one way or the other?
Well, and that's a really good question. And hopefully this will be a fairly decent answer. In my world and the way I teach, sometimes it feels off-putting to some of my students, because the first thing they'll hear me say about basically spirit team is they work for you. Now, it's sometimes uncomfortable for a student or a client, whomever it may be, a friend, a buddy, anyone who wants to talk about this. It may be one of the people that they're very connected to. Say, for instance, Mother Mary. We're going to use Mother Mary as an example. Hopefully, she won't mind. If you're feeling very close to Mother Mary, and as you do your work and you're finding out that she might be on your spirit team and she's giving you good advice, and I walk in the door and I say, "Listen, Mother Mary works for you." That's going to tweak a lot of energy, right? It's going to tweak a lot of emotions. Because we are also a respectful, hopefully respectful being, and that's gonna immediately say to us, "Oh my gosh, no, I'm bowing down to Mother Mary. I've got to make sure that I'm respectful and kind and guided, but I've got to be the one who is, that I'm the second one in command." But the reason why I say you can't work with your team that way is that you're putting forth your ego. You're looking at it from an egotistical standpoint. You're looking at it from what a human in mankind feel. There's a pecking order. But you have to understand why I feel that it's important for you to be in charge. Is that in this instance, say for Mother Mary, Mother Mary is not knowing in a human form all of what's going on in your head. So if you're just too busy being respectful and not busy enough giving Mother Mary what you need, then where is this relationship going to go?
That's I just wanted to, I have a great question, because I'm curious as well, actually. you just said that the guides do not know intrinsically what's in our head.
Not unless we talk to them. That's right.
And that to me is like, sort of breaks my brain, because you do in your mind, you assume if they're part of your native energy, they know what's going on between the ears. But, you know, I guess if they don't, then it really does require. Now, would you say, can you just say it in your mind, like, "Hey, Mother Mary, I really need to talk to you," or does it need to
Absolutely.
be spoken out loud? Is it stronger if it's spoken out loud versus?
Wow, that's a great question, because I hear that all the time, and I'm glad you brought that up. I hear that from people all the time. Think of it this way: your throat, we call it a throat chakra if we're talking about clearing and healing and working with. The throat is a very vital organ in what we do. So when we ask out loud, now I know you can't always do that. You can't be in the produce section of the supermarket and go, "I Brutus, what do you think about the bananas?" Because you're going to be in the in that special thing with the whirly top, right? Someone's going
with
to call the
the
police or
grippy
something.
socks?
Exactly. So a lot of times we'll have to say it within our own energy, through our third eye or inner voice. But if you can say it out loud, it also shows you that you have a team. We get caught up sometimes in the "I don't know about this" sort of behavior. So if I say out loud, "I Brutus, I'm counting on you to help me get, the today started," which is what I say every day. "Hi Brutus, good morning. How are you? We've got a busy day. I really appreciate you. And I'm glad you're going to be working hard with me and for me." So I say it out loud because it's really good for my throat chakra to open, because that's what I do. I communicate for a living.
Yep.
And so if I can't communicate to Brutus, then who can I, when I'm all alone, who am I going to communicate with, right?
Perfect point.
But please understand, and this is so important to me, your guides work for you. They want it that way. They're not on the other side of the veil going, "I can't believe they didn't ask me a question." They're not being that way. They're not egotistical. Mother Mary isn't sitting there tapping her toes wondering why you're not bowing to her. She's being of service to you because she chose to be of service to you. She chose to work with you. And I know there's going to be someone on the other side, because I can already feel, I don't know if it's a viewer or viewers, but I can hear someone right now say, "Well, what if I have Mother Mary? She can't have her. My friend can't have her. My neighbor can't talk to Mother Mary." And I'm going to say, really, for a moment, real quick, how many people honor God? Is he on a team? Is he just, or is he yours, or is he collectively all of ours? So God's source universe belongs to all of us. So it's okay to share guides too.
I love that, and you're so good, because that was my next question.
You're the one. You're not the viewer. You're the host.
well, we recognize, and you taught again. Anything I say, she taught me, so I just need everyone to know that. But
Well, you have the
there's
gifts
an
already.
awareness. There are certain consciousnesses, conscious eye. No, I'm just kidding. Consciousnesses, where they are so vast,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, through worship, through prayer, whatever. But it's like they are not the same as like a newly minted guide, who most likely would probably stick to a sort of a unique, like less spread out way about
Yes.
it. Whereas we do have these pretty ancient consciousnesses that are able to share time and space with individuals that are complementary to it, and it is complementary to them. So I
Yes.
think people, like you said, there can be a lot of, especially if it's a known entity.
Oh,
Because again,
absolutely.
most guides aren't famous, most guides aren't well known, da 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 da, just like our past lives. But those that are, you can probably bet, because they're discernible to this entity of the past, they're sharing their time and space, trying to do the most highest good across the
Yes.
collective. So it's not a bad thing. It's
Absolutely.
not a good thing. It's not a club. Oh, everyone show up at 5 if Mother Mary is your guide. You're like, no, come on now.
Exactly.
It's a
I
very
love that.
unique thing.
Right. That's exactly right. I don't want anyone to get so caught up on the semantics of this. We find ourselves when we go into this realm, into this pathway, we want to get the facts, we want to get the information, we want to get all of it, we want to dot our I's, we want to cross our T's as a viewer, as a listener, as a student. But I also want to say to you, don't get hung up on the particulars. If Mother Mary comes to you, don't say, "Oh my gosh, I'm not worthy. Oh my gosh, who's Mother Mary? Oh my gosh, what is this about?" Just let it flow and see if Mother Mary is truly it. If you feel her and you sense her and it happens more than once, probably you're developing something there. You're probably getting something there. Now, I also want to throw this in too, because this happens more than you would think, and I also want to put forth any of the any of our colleagues that are on the other side of this viewing. We are not saying that your methodologies, your techniques are incorrect. We're just simply saying that there's more than one way to get to town. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's very important for the colleagues to recognize. We're not bashing your plan of action. We're simply adding to it. And so I have a lot of people on the other side that say to me, I know that my grandmother is my gatekeeper. And I hear it all the time, or my grandfather's my gatekeeper. And I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that the loved one is on their team, because anyone and everyone that's part of the plan can be on your team. I mean, I am not the person to come in and go, "Grandpa, off the team, you can't play ball anymore." You
Right.
see? So we can sometimes get a very interesting hodgepodge of energies working on our behalf. But usually on a gatekeeper, because it's such a primary role, you usually are gaining someone who has been around a long time, who usually isn't your immediate relative that knows when you learn to walk, in the sense of you were in their living room. Do you
Right.
see? It's not usually a role for a loved one that's just recently deceased. I mean, maybe 10 generations back, perhaps, because then there's a lot of growth and experience and evolution and change.
And
They
they're
can,
no longer incarnating.
exactly, right. That's right. Now, and that brings us to a good point, too, Sophia, because we recognize that there are some guides that actually go back and do just the opposite. They put forth the work and they come back and they are back in physical form, and then they leave again. But it's not very common. There's a very, very, very small percent of energy that does that. Usually,
Mm.
it's kind of like anything else. If you graduate from a college, you probably just don't go back, 30 years later to just sit in a room for the heck of it. Do you see? You've already done that.
Can you describe really quick what certain circumstances are that would be what that would feel necessary, or even just feel fun, or something they would want to do?
Well, I can't necessarily speak for my team because I don't feel any of them have come back. But I'm going to say, for instance, if I had an opportunity, this is the way it would look. When we work here on Earth in human form, when we do our task and we move through our day, if and again, not everyone believes in reincarnation, but just hear me out on this for those that don't. If we come back and we do it again and we've learned quite a bit, and then we're like, I think this is my last hurrah, I think I'm done playing human, I kind of want to go back and be a guide. I want to come back and help mankind from the spiritual side of this. And all of a sudden I'm doing this, and the world's changed since I've passed. It's gotten more technical, it's gotten a little bit transformed into something a little different. I may also at that point feel, what, maybe I need to go, up my skill sets. Even though
Ooh.
I'm in the spiritual world and I am all considerably knowing, compared to what I was in human form. But I may also want to be able to amplify what I'm doing to help mankind by knowing more about what they're doing.
Oh, wow.
Do you
Okay. No, that
see?
makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and when we were training, you mentioned that, well, we mentioned, I guess, because I was having to do that class of getting to know my guys to some degree. And there was an energy in my team that came, that we know that we're there are guides that we are born with and we pass with, and then some that we don't.
Yes.
And this would be basically a guide that's not a protector or the gatekeeper, one of the intrinsic two that are forever, but
Right.
it was a kind of like a pirate energy or like a ship energy. What do you think allows? Where do you think? What about that energy for me or whoever would have a similar thing? Because technically he is not blood,
Right.
and yet also there was an awareness that he did know me in a past life. So what engenders that sort of connection?
But that's an interesting question. Well, first and foremost, I want to start off by saying, are you sure he wasn't a family member from a long, long, long time ago?
Mm-hmm.
Again, when we talked about, 10 lifetimes back or further, we recognize that there are those energies that can come forward and be on the team. They can come forward. They're not usually going to be your primaries, as you mentioned. That's exactly right. But they may be here, and we'll talk later about the seasons and reasons guides. But, that may have also been just to tweak your remembrance of that timeline.
I
You
see.
know, oftentimes, and think of it this way. How many times have we heard from old friends that we haven't talked to in 20 years? They pop up, or 10 years, they pop up and we're like, whoa, where you been? Sometimes we have those in the spirit world that for whatever reason, however, they get the vibration and they want to come in and just be kind of, in your world. Now, it also could have been the time, again, the experience and the time for you. Perhaps when you went into that vision, you went into that experience, you were feeling feisty. Maybe you were
Mm-hmm.
feeling not that you were going to go and plunder, but maybe that you were going to do something different. Maybe this was a risky endeavor. Maybe you were
Mm-hmm.
looking at it from an area and an angle of, wow, I'm going to go and try something very, very different for me. Hence, a very different energy would come forward.
That makes total sense. Um, Really quick before we go into the questions, do you have any advice for a way to get to know your gatekeeper, whether it's a meditation, whether it's just a function of thought?
Well, the cool thing about that is it's all of what you've mentioned. If you want to get to know your gatekeeper, there's a lot of moving parts to that. It's just like if you want to get to know a friend, you find someone that you're interested in being friends with. It's not just, okay, do I have a conversation? Well, you might want to sit with them. Maybe you want to go eat with them. Maybe you want to go take a walk with them. Maybe you want to ask them about their past. Maybe you want to ask them about their present. So working with guides can be many, many different techniques, many different ways of reaching to them. As a mentor and as a teacher of this particular subject that's very, very near and dear to me, I always tell people, you've got to work hard at it first and foremost. If you truly want this, just like any relationship, you can't just show up and sit there. You have to be more than that, and talk to them, and ask questions. That we've gotten those questions of the who's, the what's, the where's, the why's, and the when's for a reason. It's so that we don't sit there idle. We have a lot we can ask. Who are you? Are you with me? Why are you with me? When did you show up? How did you show up? So we're then waiting for a response. And people all the time tell me, they'll say, oh, I got this answer and that answer and this answer and that answer, and they're very happy about it. And then all of a sudden, their energy just kind of shuts down and they go, I think I made it all up. And I'm like, well, start over then and do it
Mm-hmm.
again. Because until you stop feeling like everything comes from you, you'll never understand what it is to work in both places. And so practice, sit with them, talk to them, ask them questions, expect answers. You know, one thing I'm going to tell you, and there are those out there that say this, and I'm going to hopefully shut it down, at least for our viewers.
Yes.
Your guides are never going to slap you. They're not going to shove you against the wall. That's called an abusive relationship, whether it's in the spirit world, the physical world, wherever it may be. I hear it all the time. My guide that I'm getting to know pinches me. Really? And that makes you happy? No. Your relationship is just as important in the spiritual world as it is in the physical world, and maybe sometimes even more so. I would never accept that. Now I know that the Spirit's trying to touch me and reach to me sometimes. And sometimes it gets a little either short-sighted or long-armed. And it ends up, it feels a little uncomfortable. Well, then I would say, no, that's not acceptable for me. I need this instead. If I am to trust you and work with you, no punching, no slapping, no pinching. Yeah, I hear it, and people feel that that's acceptable. It is
Well, and
never acceptable.
to like add to that as well, there really isn't that much as far as from what I've seen across time,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of physical action anyway. And so there is this
Yeah.
like, I think that sometimes, and we all, I have it, you have it, like the ego, especially with these topics, get very excited because there's a, like, we're in
Yes.
the loneliest time in the world collectively. We're so lonely. I was so lonely. And I remember when I first started working with guides, I thought that really meant, man, my whole life has been, so isolated and alone. Now I've got best friends. But the reality
Yes.
is, it isn't quite like that. It's sort of it's so lovely that they're there, but the fact that people say that they have these physical experiences, I think sometimes that, at least from what I've seen, sometimes that can be sort of a validation to them of like,
Yes.
and we just want to be mindful that we have energy that's native to us, and there's always non-native energy everywhere. And
Exactly.
so if you wake up and you've been scratched, if you have this, then we just recognize that I very much do not think guides have any desire to bring us harm.
No, not at
So
all.
they might wake
Not
us
at
up at
all.
the wrong time of night because it's been so long since they've been alive and they don't recognize we need sleep. But be very, like you just said, cautious about some energy that it seems invested in causing discomfort, because I just don't think that's just not really a big thing I've seen. I'm sorry.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense. I feel people really crave validation. And so oftentimes what I do encourage the guides to do is to allow a different feel, because it is hard if you've got three primaries. Well, we know there's two primaries, but you can have obviously more guides. Um, to kind of get a feel from one to the next. And so in practice sessions, what we do is we bring in one guide, we let them step back just a little bit. No, they're not leaving the room in the sense of going out for, lunch or, on holiday. They're going to be hanging out with you because that's why they're there in the first place. But we ask them to step back a little bit so that you can learn as a student, whomever that may be, what it feels like to have a particular guide nearby. Now, as they get closer and closer, and we do even ask in practice for them to get into your comfort zone, because you need to know the difference of when they're there and when they're not there. Okay. And some people do appreciate, again, more validation. Touch me on the hand, touch me on the shoulder. You can touch my hair. And so when these things happen, I always tell people, please make sure that you're good with that later. Because if you've said over and over to your guide, you can play with my hair, and the next thing in the middle of the night, someone's playing with your hair, and I'm getting a text message at 4 a.m. that the boogeyman is after you, you have to understand it came from you in the first place.
I can't. I always get tickled and also feel bad for you. The amount of people who hit you in the middle of the night, like you don't need sleep.
Well, I'm very grateful for what I do, and I'm very honored what I do, but it's not unusual to get upwards of 100 or more
Oh
reach
my
outs a
gosh.
day. Those are not necessarily clients every day, but they are certainly reach outs.
Should I take this job? You're like, would you like to book with me or no?
Well, after about 36 messages, and I've had one recently, 36
Oh
messages
my
from that,
god.
I have to say, and I pick on no one, if you are that scared of this job, I'm going to tell you no. So if you
Excellent
have to
point.
worry that much, no.
Case in point. Well, everything I know about the system started with the guides. Like
Yes.
there was no form of this work that could really be organized and succinct and safe and in love. And like you said last episode, in love and in wisdom without the guides.
That's
It just
exactly
wouldn't
right.
have happened. So, for anyone who is kind of trying to figure out what is the first step of really getting your toe wet in spirit, and I would say, bar none, develop at least a recognition and maybe even a closeness to your team so that you can walk in spirit and feel protected and feel organized
Yes.
and and have that be a beautiful experience and not an overwhelming one.
Absolutely. And along the same lines, we also want to remind you that we want you to have a healthy relationship with people. We want you to go out there in the physical world and
Mm-hmm.
find and forge those relationships, build those bonds, create that bridge to happiness. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want you to feel that, okay, now that I'm going through a lot of trouble, or whatever it may be, I'm going to meet my guides, get my guides, and then I'm going to go hole up in my bedroom for the next 2 years. We see that sometimes. Your guides are working for you, but you have to work towards keeping relationships in the physical world. I'm going to throw this out, and this is going to blow some of your minds, including mine. But I have clients, and I say extra prayers for them. I help them with mantras because I have clients that literally have relied on and I can't say it out loud because I don't want everyone's ALEXAs going off. But
Yep.
they've relied on the artificial intelligence to befriend them, and that is their new bestie. They communicate with those types, those resources, to be, basically their friends. So please recognize you need the real world too. And I say the real world meaning the flesh and blood. The other world's real, but the one you're currently living in, you need those people too, those interactions.
That's so well said, because you cannot work through or develop, really work through. You can't burn karma with AI. You can't
No,
burn karma with the guides.
no,
So
not at all.
all of our legwork are not only our goals and our purposes, but also the things that get logged on our soul. It
Yes,
has to be a soul to soul connection to do any type of real work. So I
yes,
think that's perfect,
absolutely.
because if you do go into the avenue where spirit is all that you do, or that how do you say, or like the AI, especially like in some other countries right now, everyone's just marrying AI. That's crazy, but that is happening.
That's another
Um,
thing. Yes, yes,
it, and now you've got a whole lifetime that you haven't done anything with your development or with clearing karma. So you're going to come
exactly.
back pretty much at the same level as the moment you gave it all up for AI, or up for spirit, or whatever it is that
Yes,
made us not function in the here and now.
right. Exactly. They all have their purposes. AI is a wonderful tool in many ways on many landings and platforms. But again, nice balance. We need a nice balance of connections.
I could not agree more. I think that was amazing. That was an amazing coverage of the Gatekeeper Guide. I'm so
I love the
happy.
Gatekeeper Guide energy. It's amazing.
Oh
It's
yeah.
amazing energy.
Well, so that we can get you off to the races as needed, we got the 3 questions per
Oh,
usual.
I love it. Yes.
We've got one from Flacco. I don't
Okay.
know the
Hi,
and
Flacco. If you're
he
still
is
around.
a little bit. I feel in his energy that he's a little bit nervous when I ask him, about this question. But I think more than anything, he wants to understand what might be around him in spirit, whether it's loved ones, whether it's energies or guides, whatever. And I can't feel if there's a fear around it. I don't feel a lot of fear, but if there was, it's more just a nervousness.
Right.
Um, but so I'll give it to you.
Well, and that's a really good question too. Oftentimes we'll hear, I feel something around me and I have no idea what it may be. Well, we recognize that if we do believe that spirits come and visit us, our family, our loved ones, our friends come and visit us, then we recognize that at some point we're probably getting a little bit of that. If we've recently lost someone, we're probably really projecting that energy back to spirit world, and they're more apt to come see us. So
Mm,
I feel for this particular individual that he's got a little bit of everything going on. Oftentimes when people are intuitive too, they get a lot of knocks at their door, meaning that they are in a position where the spirit wants to either help them to create more connection to it, or they want the individual to see that they do have a gift. And I feel for this person that I'm feeling a grandmother around this energy. I'm feeling there's a grandmother. I don't feel there's any urgency to it. I just feel it's kind of she's kind of spending time. Again, if this person hasn't evolved into understanding the spirit world of guides, we recognize that the guides do try to get our attention. And I also feel that this person probably has a few guides that are trying to assist. There's something very academic about this person. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm feeling that there's likely to also be someone in the spirit world that's coming through, is the way I feel and see it, coming through to help him with some kind of academic question, whether he's going to be in that field or he needs to be more scholarly in what he's got right now. But I feel he's got someone in particular because I see a cap and gown around him.
Oh, wow.
And I'm
Okay.
not sure exactly why. It may seem very odd to him, but I feel that, and I feel it's for his benefit. Tell him not to be afraid. I don't see the boogeyman. I don't see anything around him that makes me worry. I feel like he's just kind of getting into his own energy, and it's just going to be a really good, especially the next 3 months for this person.
Oh, good. That
Yes.
was the end of the question was also if there's any advice for this new year for him.
Well, more than anything, tell him to be patient, tell him to be aware, and just tell him to enjoy. Because I feel like last year was a little bit problematic. And so we're going into a new, just a new beginning. And I always look at it, I don't do New Year's resolutions or any of that stuff. But I say, let's get into this year and get some positive energy going. Shed off last year's problems, because I feel there were some. And this year is supposed to be a good year for you. But again, remember, you've got free will. If you choose to sit home and eat bonbons, you're not going to get healthy. So let's keep moving forward and progress through. May should be a really good month for you.
May?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. We'll roll to the next one, Esco. He is asking about career stuff. I think he has a connection to entertainment of some kind,
He's very
music
creative.
making or something. And then also, I kind of threw this in here for him, but he does have a son. So if there's anything about his son that we can help improve his life with knowledge about that.
Oh, absolutely. I can feel he's very theatrical. I feel he's got just a really good kind of thought about life. He does sometimes get a little ahead of himself. Tell him he's got to slow down a little bit, kind of keep on a path. I feel his son is very creative. And I want to say to him, don't be afraid to share all of that love for the theater, love for entertainment world with your son. There are so many different approaches. Whether it's playing pretend kings in the backyard, whatever it may be, take an opportunity to really show that there's a lot of magic in thought. I feel he's very creative. And I feel like there's some kind of playwright or screenplay, something that's going to really be enhanced. I feel not only a brilliant mind, obviously a brilliant effort to act. If he wanted to go that, he could do commercials. He just, I don't really see voiceovers or any of that, but I see either some type of screenwrite, something that it would be in the written form as well. That seems very strong around him.
And when you say written, I don't know. Again, these are not energies I know very, very well. If I remember correctly, would you consider writing beats, writing music in that framework, or no?
Well,
Is it
again,
word?
and that makes a lot of sense. We recognize that being creative can go in many different directions. It has many branches of that tree, and I
Gotcha.
feel that music is important, but I'm not necessarily seeing him as a musician.
Ooh.
I see it more as we're going to compose, we're going to write, we're going to create. I want to call him a master builder of thought. And I'm really kind of getting goosey bumps from that. So he has an
I do too.
opportunity, has an opportunity to excel far beyond his reach right now. So again, remember, just because the apples in the tree might be over our head doesn't mean we can't get the means to reach for them. And I feel like that's a real solid message for him.
Oh, I love that. What's even weirder about that, I don't know his numerology, but there is a life path that's considered the master builder. And that's so funny I don't know if that's what he is. I can't remember, but funny. That's so funny that you say that.
Interesting.
All right, last one, and then I'll let you go. And thank you also. Flacco, Esco, they're good guys. So I'm glad.
Good.
Last but not least, Riley. She is, I believe it's been like an on and off 10-year relationship. I can't remember, but something of that nature, sort of. And she's wanting to know, she wants a family. And so far, this has not been a viability for this relationship. And she wants to know if there ever will be.
That's a great question. I'm also a firm believer that when we ask for guidance and we ask for the spirit world to come forward, we also want to take a look at the humanness of this. I can tell you that doing the same thing over and over isn't going to bring a different result. That's the intuitive side of me first and foremost. Let me get that out of the way. I don't feel that there is a strong desire to have children because 10 years is a long time to wait for progress. I'm not nearly that patient. I got to
Mm-mm.
give her kudos, 2 thumbs up. She's got a lot of patience. I don't feel this relationship is actually going to net her a family. I feel this relationship is very comfortable doing what this relationship is doing. Okay, the realism here is, in her view, I really feel that she's getting towards a timeline where she's going to need to make a choice. And I'm seeing right now it's more like a saunter. It's more a like a just an easygoing walk down the track. And I don't feel that that's going to net her what she's looking for. I know it's painful and it's hard for someone just to come in and say, I don't feel the relationship is really what you need. I know that's a painful choice when you know someone for 10 years. It's hard to go from being in a relationship to being buddies. But I really feel that there's needing to be some soul searching. She's a great
Mm-hmm.
person, but she's waiting for things to happen instead of creating things, making them happen.
Mm-hmm. I got you. And, if there's any advice for this next year for her, especially recognizing that they're really, I hate to phrase it this way, but we do recognize there are real chapters to the life, and once that chapter
Absolutely.
turns, those people and those opportunities that were available in the next chapter, they change. You have new
Yes,
opportunities and new people and a new chapter,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
we got to be careful who we take into the new chapters because then now they're there, now they're in there.
Well, exactly. And it's one thing also, and we could dig deeper into this. I'm also hearing from my team that there is also some animosity that's been built into this relationship. It's not nearly as strong as one would think. And so
Mm,
maybe that's because it's been so spread out for so long. But more than
mm,
anything, I feel this is a lovely soul who
she's
needs to,
wonderful.
yeah, she just needs to recognize that she has the power to change. I'm going to mention this is what I'm hearing. And first, let me also say I love snakes. Snakes don't represent evil, please, people. Please, there's so don't go there. Um, but I see this, and I want to say to her, I want to say a snake has to shed its skin to grow. What does she need to shed to grow? And I don't think it's only the relationship. It's the ideology behind the relationship. She'll be
Yeah,
okay. She'll
I
be
think so
okay.
too.
Tell her to go on
I
that trip that she's been wanting to go on. Tell her to go on that trip. Tell her she doesn't need this person to go with her. She
okay.
needs to go find herself and she'll bring herself back.
You just reminded me. I do think she has something on the books. I don't know if her partner's involved, but you're so good. That's why you're the
Well,
goat.
I'm a good listener to the spirit world.
It's amazing, always, always, always to talk with you, Terri. Flacco Esco Riley, thank you guys for sending your questions to me. I hope that that was helpful. I already feel, the question about guides and how thankful we are that that was our topic today. It's like there really is a building block system here, and people want to go straight into seeing crazy, like me when I was training. We want to get into seeing crazy stuff and doing crazy things, and no one thinks we shouldn't. But the reality is, it doesn't happen like that. It really
No.
is a slow relationship. It has to be slow so that you trust it and they trust you.
Yes.
There is innate talent for sure, but it's kind of like if you want to become, a famous Jackson Pollock painter, right?
Yes.
You can look at a paper and throw ink at it and throw paint at it, and it will be something, but
Yes.
it will not evoke from spirit or from others the exact same thing that some of these, it looks artless because it's chaotic on paper, but then you start to go back and realize he trained for years. And
Yes.
so, and not to say that
Absolutely.
everyone needs to train for years, but I will say there is a necessity to
Yes.
understanding how this works and how to do it so that you remain confident of that relationship with spirit, the gifts that you do or do not have. Just, it's no one's going to think less of you or really more of you wherever you are on this timeline of getting to know spirit, because it's not for the eyeballs of others. It's you and your guides coming together, hopefully in a timely manner so that the help can be retrieved from them.
Absolutely. Well spoken.
All right. Well, that we've done it.
We've done it. Oh my gosh, as I Brutus would say, we've officially done it.
I love it. I love it. To all the listeners, we had that really long episode before, but this is going to be kind of the vibe, I think. And so if you like it, like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube. Find us on all the podcast platforms. And if you want your question asked, if you would like your question answered, comment on our video on YouTube, and we will do our best to get to you. If there's any topic that you really, really want to hear about, also comment that. And if it gets enough likes, we'll probably put it in the pot. Terri, tell them how they can get to you.
Oh, yes, please do get to me. My website is called Vita Perceptions. It's spelled VITA Perceptions. You know how to spell that one, hopefully. VitaPerceptions.com. That's me. I'm also, I'm a little hesitant to give you my phone number because I already have a full voicemail, and that's been since 8 o'clock this morning. So you don't get it today, unless you come see me in my office, then you can get it. But I do have also an email, and that's fine too. It's, again, you've heard the word Vita, and then VitaPerceptions@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get you on the schedule. I do really well with emails and text messages. Later, you might get that number if you try hard. But as you know, sometimes calling back is a little bit tricky when you're with clients and students. So please reach out. I'd love to hear about you, and I'd love to work with you.
Awesome, you guys. All right. Well, we'll see you next week, Terri. And again, it's so fun talking to you. Thank you again.
Keep glowing and knowing.
That's what we got to do. I love you so much.
I love you
to the
so
moon
much.
And back. Take care.
Take care. Happy Sunday.
You too.
Thank you.